Hi guys. Probably one of the most common questions I get asked all the time is, if there are aliens, why haven't we heard from them yet? Well, I'm going to examine a few possibilities with you all today, and maybe we can shed some light on this topic. First of all, last year I had the incredible privilege of meeting the former Canadian Defence Minister of Canada, the Honourable Paul Hellyer. He was at an event put on by two friends of mine, David Whitehead and Christopher Rusak. This was at the Modern Knowledge Tree event. It was an absolutely amazing event where the speakers were talking about extraterrestrial disclosure. So when I did talk to Paul, and when you hear what he has to say, he will tell you firsthand that our governments have been working with extraterrestrials, and they've been working firsthand with our militaries. We also know that there have been incredible stories coming from ET contactees that have had intelligible communications. But again, one big question we have to look at is, with all our satellites and all our technologies, why haven't we received a signal yet? And as many of you may already know, there have been programs such as SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, which was featured in the movie Contact with Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey. Now, this movie is based on a real premise. The story was actually written by Carl Sagan, and Carl Sagan, the famous astronomer, actually sent out a message from Arecibo in Puerto Rico in 1974 called the Arecibo message. Now, this was one of the most powerful signals ever sent into space, 1,000,000 times more powerful than a television signal. It included our basic core math. It included our DNA, the type of antenna used to send a signal, and information about us in general was beamed out into space some 25,000 light years away. Interestingly enough, some 27 years later, we hear about a crop circle that shows up in 2001, the same year as Dr. Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project. But it's over in Chilbolton, UK, at an observatory that is said to have the largest fully steerable meteorological radar there is. Now, this incredible crop circle that pops up shows what appears to be a reply to the original message by Carl Sagan. And it has, some similarities to the imagery, except this time there is non-human DNA, a different location in the solar system, and instead of the radio wave antenna, it depicts a microwave antenna. And when you keep looking here, and there's lots of pictures, by the way, online, if you look this up, there also was a picture of a face that showed up nearby. Some have dismissed this, like many other crop circles and formations, as a hoax. However, what should be noted here is that I think it's very interesting that many of these crop circles have complex geometrical shapes and patterns, and the way that they're formed and the size, it looks like it's a little bit more complicated than a few drunk guys stumbling out of a pub late at night using some boards and rope in a field. In fact, a lot of these crop circles and formations have been done in such a way where there are electromagnetic fields and radiation nearby, and the wheat is slumped over, and experts have looked at them from all over the country for encoded messages. So while this is being dismissed as a hoax, some look at this as a legitimate reply to the original Arecibo message, hence the name, the Arecibo reply. Now, I'd also like to show you guys some recent headlines that have been in the news. If you want to come take a look at over what we have here. This was in Russia Today, published on February 25th, 2016. Scientists trace mystery alien signals to distant galaxy. And they have talked over here about fast radio bursts, FRBs. And they've been speculated to be signs of extraterrestrial intelligence, 6 billion light years away. But of course, some scientists have dismissed this as just possibly two neutrino stars colliding. And in other recent news, we've looked at other radio telescope observatories being proposed to look for alien life. China is building one of the largest ones in the world. And we also read that a Russian tycoon named Yuri Milner is proposing such an observatory where he's giving $100 million to hunt for aliens. And, they've talked about Stephen Hawking endorsing this. But even more bizarre, the NSA has actually released documents through the Freedom of Information Act. Now documents have been declassified. The NSA's technical journal for decoding ET transmissions that they've had. And this is the NSA's government site. You guys can look this up. This is really fascinating and incredible stuff that we're getting now that's being declassified from disclosure. So there's a lot here to check out. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you guys a first-hand look at what this search looks like. So recently we flew over to Puerto Rico, we rented a vehicle and drove up into the beautiful mountains of Arecibo to talk to them firsthand and give you guys a peek at what this search looks like. Check it out. So I'm here with Javian at the Arecibo Observatory. And Javian, what do you do here?
Well, I'm basically a tour guide here. I make sure all the visitors that come here make sure they understand all the exhibits. I show them a presentation of like the history of the observatory and what the scientists do here. And then I come outside, I bring them outside, and I give them a lecture about the radio telescope.
Okay, why was this built in the first place?
Well, the reason why it was built mostly is because back in the late 50s, early 60s, the United States was in competition with Russia to send the first satellite up into space. Now, even though the United States had numerous attempts to send it, but they kept on failing in doing so. Therefore, they felt that they needed to study the ionosphere more. That's where the observatory comes in. That way they could study the ionosphere, that way they could get it right, and they finally sent it up into space.
Well then, where do we get the whole search for extraterrestrial intelligence, Carl Sagan, and the Arecibo message that was sent out?
Well, yeah, back in the 70s, SETI came here to send a message up into space. They were just hoping that maybe something will pick it up, decode it, and then answer us back. And, that was back in the 70s, so to this day we've had no answer, but yeah, that was back in the 70s.
Have you heard about the message that they claim to have received back over in the UK that was in a crop formation, that they had DNA structure and everything there?
I have not heard of that, no.
Could you tell us a little bit about how it works and how enormous it is and what we're looking at there?
Right, this is still the largest and most sensitive single-dish radio telescope in the world. Now, the way it works is inside the Gregorian dome, there's receivers and there is also transmitters. So we can send a radio wave up into space and it could crash on any celestial object we're studying, or any celestial object sending radiation or any radio waves, we can receive them. It runs through optic cables that run from the Gregorian dome all on the top of the bridge and then into the control room, which is where our scientists work. There, the radio waves are frozen to absolute zero and they're collected in a database.
That's incredible. So how far can this thing go? How far can it reach?
A lot of people ask that, and this was the first place to study a celestial object outside of our solar system.
So are you guys still in cooperating with NASA?
Yes, we have additional funds from NASA. Not too long ago, we have found one of their satellites that got lost in space, which was the Soho space station, and it was orbiting the sun. We were able to locate it for them, and they were able to retrieve it.
Any signals or messages out there that you guys don't know where they're from, like extraterrestrial?
Not at the moment, no.
Not a problem there. So with this currently, what movies has this been featured in? Has it been featured in, I know it was in Contact, and yes. I saw GoldenEye back there. Any others?
There's been 3 movies filmed here, which is 007 GoldenEye, Contact, and the last one back in 2010 was The Losers. This also appeared in 1 episode of The X-Files, and then it's also a playable map in a video game.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You're welcome.
Now, we've been searching for signs of ET life for some time now, but haven't had a reply. In order to find out the question why, we have to ask some of our famous physicists. Let's take a look. If we look at books and the work of physicist Dr. Michio Kaku, he tells us that the reason why is we've only been searching about 100 light years from Earth for where life is if there's a signal. But, our galaxy itself is about 100,000 light years across. And galaxies are about tens of millions of light years apart. So we've only been looking in a very small corner of our neighborhood. Furthermore, he says that as we've been looking, we've only been looking in a very small area, which is the hydrogen frequency. The next step, of course, would be looking in laser and in broadband style frequency. He not only says that, but he says if you think about the type of communication we use right now with the internet and email, most of our communications are broken up into little fragments. So if you look at how an advanced ET civilization would communicate, they would break up their communication into little fragments on different frequency bands so that they wouldn't be interrupted by passing stars and sent out there. So it's very unlikely that we would pick up communications to the way that we're doing it right now. And in fact, Michio Kaku thinks that the way that we're going right now, at this rate, we wouldn't get a signal using this technology for at least another century. But, with that being said, I think that we are already on to communication. We're getting it in all sorts of different ways.
And that organization was created with the objective of looking for extraterrestrial activity. And then, back there in the 70s, they managed to send a message. That's called the Arecibo message. I don't know if you have heard of it, but it was sent in binary codes to a conglomerate of stars. They sent it to a conglomerate of stars because of being so many stars together, the probability of finding a planet that could sustain life, such as this one, was greater. They send it in binary code, that is the zeros and ones, like the computer language. They send the numbers from 1 to 10, the elements that allow life, a model of the human DNA with all its parts, a model of the human body with the average weight and height, a model of the solar system emphasizing Earth, and a model of the radio telescope, like we're sending it from here using this instrument. It was sent back there in the 70s, but we still have no reply, so we cannot accept or deny nothing.
Still waiting.
We're still waiting. This has been my conference. Any question or doubt that you may have? Yes?
So, has there ever been any kind of signal that might have been misconstrued as showing some kind of intelligence or organization?
Extraterrestrial intelligence? Well, to the moment, they haven't had nothing. We have received a few signals, but they are from different celestial objects. All the signals that come inside, they get analyzed, and they have actually found a lot of different celestial objects new to our knowledge because of the signals getting studied. Well, the study is still working, not here in the observatory, in the Arecibo observatory, but they're still working in different observatories around the world.
We can also look at the work of Dr. Stephen Greer from the Disclosure Project, who came up with something known as the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And this was a protocol that he was shown that people could form circles or do so on their own and send telepathic initiations to ETs and get messages. And of course, this has worked very well for him. There have been all sorts of cases out there from humanoid ET encounters, and a friend of mine, Albert Rosales, has actually written a great new series called Humanoid Encounters, talking about this. We know about the incredible encounters of Philip Kraft and Richard Dolan's work, and so many whistleblowers out there like Sergeant Major Bob Dean and of course Sergeant Clifford Stone and others who have told us that ET contact is real and it's happening. So I really feel that we are getting contacted, and there is a lot of evidence to suggest that. But I want to know what you all think. Let us know in the comments. Like this video, subscribe, share it with your friends, and thank you for watching.